And there's a verse in John chapter 11, verses 1 through 16 about Lazarus. And many of us are very familiar with this passage. And I want to read this to you. It says, "Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, which was the village of Mary and Martha, his sister. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill." Now I want you to catch this. "But when Jesus heard it, he said, This illness will not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so the Son of God may be glorified through it." So Jesus is saying, listen, there's a purpose in this illness of your brother. There's a purpose, and that purpose is to glorify God. Now it continues on. It says, "Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus." Did you catch this? Jesus loved Mary, Jesus loved Martha, and Jesus loved Lazarus. And it continues on. "So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was." So when he heard that Lazarus was ill and about to die, because he loved Martha, loved Mary, and loved Lazarus, he delayed coming to care for Lazarus and to heal Lazarus because he loved them. And because he loved them, he knew that they loved him and trusted in him. And so it continues on. It says, "Then after this, he said to his disciples, Let us go to Judea again." And the disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you and are you going to go back there again?" And Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in the day?" And this is important. So the disciples are saying, "Jesus, we can't go back there. They're trying to kill you there. You can't go back and care for Lazarus." And so Jesus answers, says, "Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world." So what Jesus is saying here says, listen, he said, if you walk in the light, if you continue to trust me and walk in the light, even when the world seems to be walking in darkness, you're not going to stumble. Even through this difficult time, this struggle, no matter how hard it may get, no matter if death is knocking at your door, maybe death opens up the door in your family, and it's something that literally wants to rip your heart out, because you trust in Jesus and you stand in the light, that God is going to give you a way through this and help you to see his purpose in this. But he continues on, he says, "But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him." So this is going to challenge our hearts. This time of struggle is going to challenge you. If we become bitter, if we become angry, if we become fearful and worrisome and full of angst and anxiety, then it is displaying something or revealing something in our heart, that there's some type of darkness and some type of distrust in who God is. So after saying these things, he said to them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover." Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking a rest meant he was asleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus has died, and for your sake I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe." And so again, we see right here, it says, there's a plan in the pain and a plan in the struggling. And he says, and right now it's showing your heart once again. He said, Lazarus has died. He's not asleep. He has died. And I'm so glad that he has died, because I need to help you with your belief, because you can't believe and trust that I am God, and that even when something seems dead, I can bring it back to life. Trust in who I am. So he says, I'm glad that he has died, so I can help you with your belief. And he continues on, he says, but let us go to him. So Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with Jesus. You know, and so once again, even when Jesus is saying all these things and saying that, listen, you don't understand that who I am and what I can do. And so even though the disciples were warning, saying, Jesus, you can't go back because something happens, Jesus says, trust me. And it seems to me that if they would have just stopped, if they would have just looked at Jesus and truly not just heard his words, but listened with their heart, they would have understood that God had a plan in all of this. But because they're so busy looking at the physical circumstances, they missed hearing what Jesus was speaking. So once again, it's important for us to understand that when we pray, we have to first wait and listen and ask God to show us what is going on, and ask God to show us how to pray.